So, Sepi, we're gonna start from scratch because our last call, I think we're just gonna scrap it, and we're gonna go with we're just gonna go with the flow. But what
Yeah.
would be nice to know is once again, in brief, who is Sepi? A little bit of a
Well,
rundown.
I kind of thought about that question the last time the tech kind of destroyed our flow. And I was like, what I started doing the last time was kind of like explaining my resume. I felt like, oh, this is where I was born, and then I did this, and then I did that. And it's kind of a boring way to approach a question that's that big as like, who is Sepi? Like, I mean, we're so used to like explaining what we do that when somebody asks us who we are, we just get really stuck. Like, who am I? Honestly, I mean, that's a really huge philosophical, existential question. Yet I dove in the last time into like just explaining to you where I was born, where I went to school, which I guess is interesting for me, but I don't know if it's interesting for someone else.
Well, it does give some context to then learn. Like, you could always begin in both ways, right? Someone could start off philosophical, and you're like, wait a minute, where are you from? And then he's like, I was born in a tribe in the Amazon. And you're like,
Right.
oh, okay, that's why he's like that. And then you
Right.
could also learn where someone's from, and then you're like, that's why they're like that. So it goes both ways, you know. I think it's all critical information either way.
Right. So I can dive into it
because it puts the whole image together. It puts the whole picture. So however you know, like, I'm glad you're thinking about it, because it's also, have you ever typed in your name into Google just to see what comes up?
Yeah, a lot of boring stuff comes up, like my profile on LinkedIn. There's nothing fun that comes up.
No, but at least you did it, you know. So you just try to, like, people are trying to figure out like what like, who am I, what am I? And it's a good question to ask once in a while, because sometimes people just get caught up in that whole thing, like, oh, I'm from Sweden and I'm a firefighter, and then that's their whole thing. But they might be more, they might be less, but they might be more.
I guess I'm opposed to the whole, I'm not opposed to the question, but I guess I'm critical of the question because I myself find it kind of boring listening to people's resumes when what you do want to know instead are the interesting stuff. Like, how did it
So tell me the interesting stuff. There we go.
But
let's go into
with
it.
all due respect, well, let's start doing the backdrop of who I am, and then we can dwell into that later on. But well, I was born to Persian parents in Iran, and we moved when I was 2.5 years old. So I'm technically born somewhere else, but I don't really have any memories of having lived in Iran since I was so little. They moved to Sweden, which is where I've grown up and gone to school, high school, all throughout university. And literally, I guess I consider Sweden my home base, really. Iran feels like home, doesn't really feel like home, to be honest.
Have you been back there?
I have been back a few times. We went back when we were kids, we used to go back more often and spend summer holidays there, and it used to be more fun. As I get older, I have enjoyed it less and less. So it's really not a priority anymore going there. But I do remember having enjoyed it as a kid, and I'm happy that we did those things because it created like a context as to who I am. But anyway, pretty much just went to school all throughout in Sweden, and I started university pretty early. At 19, I started studying law school here. But then after law school, or even in between law school, it's been a lot of like jumps. It's been of living abroad during several time periods. I studied part of my law degree in Spain, in Barcelona. I did my internship in Mexico City. I've been jumping on and off different branches pretty much ever since. So, and currently I'm based in Dominican Republic. As you know, we're from the same town. And that's where I've been based the past 5 years.
So you're mentioning last time a little bit that you have this law degree. You're using the law degree though, plus or minus, for your professional side.
You mean if I'm using it right now?
Yeah, like, you studied, what type of law was it? I don't know if we dove into that, but maybe it might be interesting.
Oh, I studied, honestly, I think law degrees look differently in different countries, but the system, the law degree that I have is a pretty much a master of laws, and it's pretty much each semester you dwell into a certain area of law. So it's kind of, I mean, it's not called anything in particular, but I guess it's a general law degree if I were to like explain it. And then upon the end, writing my thesis, you could branch out and kind of choose your area of interest. And in my case, I chose intellectual property. So I wrote my thesis around trademark law. And
okay. And what were you trying to prove
and
with that?
honestly, I don't know if I was trying to prove anything. Do you want to know the brutal honesty? I wrote it because the guy that was like my mentor was known as a pretty sloppy guy that didn't have really high demands, and he wasn't really keen on. I mean, some teachers took their mentor role really seriously, and they wanted you to show up like twice a week to have meetings and checkups of where you were at in your thesis work. But I pretty much chose the biggest slacker in the faculty of law because I kind of liked his vibe that he was pretty chill and laid back. So I actually had a boyfriend in Barcelona back then. So I ended up leaving and writing my thesis from Barcelona during 6 months. So I really didn't have any meetings with him. And he gave me the highest, like, how do you say,
Grade?
highest grade. I think it was well deserved, but I mean, I didn't see the guy, nor really I wasn't really in touch with him during my thesis work.
So you got out pretty easy then.
I mean, I think I'm very smart, so I still think I did what I was supposed to do, but it's just a little bit sums up my philosophy in life, which is I don't really like all of the admin stuff around the main task. I mean, it's kind of like my life philosophy where I kind of try to strip away meetings and admin and briefs and stuff and just focus. I'm kind of autistic that way. Like, it's like I want to write my thesis, I'll write my thesis. There's no need for me to show up twice a week to talk about writing my thesis.
Yeah, I
need you. I'll write an email. Yeah.
And where did you, because now you're saying that you're sort of like this. When did you figure out that you were like this? When were you able to start putting it into words?
I feel like as long as I can remember, I've been a person, which is going to sound, listen, it's not about me being sloppy at all, because I don't think I would have achieved half of the things I've achieved if I were. But I think I'm a person whose philosophy is minimal effort, maximal gain, which means that I really try not to choose the easy way, because I've definitely not chosen easy ways, but I don't like overcomplicating things in life, and I don't like excess admin. So I guess kind of that's part of the reason why I started my own company, because I felt like in the course of working for others, which definitely has its advantages, I felt many times that a lot of like normal 9 to 5 work life revolves around a lot of admin. There's a lot of knocks on the doors, there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of like having to show up between 9 to 5 to do a certain job, while as maybe I could have easily done that job in less time and maybe focused the other time doing other things. So I think it's not so much laziness or sloppiness. It's more so that I prefer being efficient when I'm supposed to be efficient, and then being off when I'm off.
And do you apply that in your normal, let's say your social life, or is that only in your professional life? Because what you're saying right now, from what I know from you, doesn't seem 100% like that, what you're saying right now.
I'm strictly actually talking about my professional life when it comes to this. I don't strip away my social life in the terms of being efficient, or no, that social Sepi is a totally different person. But when it comes to like tasks and achievement, yeah, then I'm very much not into the hoo-ha around stuff.
And do you think there is a difference though? Like, does that sort of, does it tear you apart in a way that you have like two different, is there another one? Is there professional Sepi, social Sepi, and then another Sepi? Or is there just like two Sepis?
No, they're not two, and they're intertwined too. You know, when I think about it, once you like put me on the spot and ask me, for example, my friends know I'm not really great at checking in, for example. Like, I'm really not good at like messaging or chatting. Like, I'm not the type of friend that like sends a message being like, hey, just checking in, sending you this teddy bear image, whatever that I saw of you. And all my good friends also know that every time somebody gets married or supposed to have a baby shower, I'm also not that friend that's very much into like
Let me help you
logistics and
organize it.
I'm not like, and I think the friends that I have, which I have a lot, and most of them I've had for 10 to 15 years, are with me, Avi, not because of my baby shower organizing skills, but for other traits, which is when shit really goes down, they know that they can call me and they trust me. So I think I'm more of a, and when they need me, I mean, I drop everything and I listen and I'm completely there. But I
Yeah.
think if a friend wants a certain level of commitment where it's like, I need you to like be more engaging, I need you to like chat more or and send me messages more or check in with me more often, that's just not who I am. So I think the people that love me and who I love, they've accepted me the way I am. And they just know that I show up in different ways.
So you're a bit of like a lone wolf in a way, an alpha lone wolf. Like you could join, you can be part of a pack, but you're not
Mm-hmm.
there just chilling by the campfire all the time.
No. And I definitely I always say that I'm an introverted extrovert, which means that I can definitely be super social. And I think anybody that views me from the outside definitely sees somebody that's super social. But at the same time, I really need alone time to recharge. And I don't like chatting. I don't like messaging a lot. I don't like talking on the phone. There's
Yes.
certain things that I just, which is also pretty like autistic, right? Like I like, let's
We're
get
pretty much
together.
checking off all the boxes with this phone call right now.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you need that alone time to like recharge. So what do you do in like alone time to recharge? Like what does that entail? Does that like, is there like routines behind that? Is there specific specifics behind that, or like, and how do you know when you have to go into that mode, and how do you know when you can go out of that mode?
I mean, it's very organic, to be honest. I love being at home. I love
Like home means just indoors.
indoors, exactly, like in my home space. Like now I'm in Sweden,
Okay.
I'm at my parents' house. I don't mind cooping up inside. I love reading books. I love diving into like a series and just watching it alone in bed. I really have no, I don't have a hard time entertaining myself or being with myself at all. I love taking long walks when I'm in Europe and I have the chance to like walk. So I'm not one of those people that needs to be with other people at all times. And but I do love the balance of it. You know, I do feel it in DR, for example, where we live a more active lifestyle, or at least I feel like I do. I feel like I'm constantly like surrounded by people, which I love. But
Yeah.
let's say a weekend where I've been like maybe at a dinner on Friday and then maybe on Saturday I go on an excursion with a group of friends. By the time Sunday comes and people want to like maybe continue and have beers or watch the sunset at somebody's house, I'll be like, okay, I need to go home now. And then I might have like a break of like 3 to 4 days where I'm not socializing that much until I like regain my energy again.
So does it
Yeah.
drain you, like that social side of it? Is that like a, like, does it sort of take a toll on it, on
It
yourself?
doesn't take a toll. I really enjoy it when I'm in it, but I also really feel my boundaries where I'm like, okay, it's been too much, too many people, too much socializing. I just want to be alone right now. Like, let's say I've had a really active weekend. I might balance that out the next weekend where I'm like, I'm not going to book anything, where everything comes up organically. I might do it. I'm also like, everybody knows me knows that I hate planning because I don't know how I'm going to feel next week. So I'm like, I'm very bad at committing. Like next week, we're going to go for dinner on Thursday, but I'll probably be like, I can't commit to that now, but let's touch base later in the week.
All right. So that's on the, so that's like how you handle yourself in the social side. But then it feels like a work wise thing. If someone's like, hey, in 1 month I need this one thing, or in 1 month we have this one meeting, you'd be able to adjust accordingly.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
I'm super good with deadlines. I'm super disciplined. I mean, you don't go through law school, which is really tough, at least right. You don't go through law school unless you're super disciplined. Plus, I did 3 years at a really huge law firm in Sweden where it was like cutthroat work climate. You just don't do those things unless you are a disciplined person. So I'm really good at switching when it's business, and then I'm like all in. But I'm also really good at chilling when I have time. Like I work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard. You know, I heard that. I think it was. actually on the last talk with Marcel. I think he said that. He said, I know how to work hard and play hard. I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah.
But then sort of random, because you mentioned that you read books, you watch series. I'm guessing you also watch movies. And you also mentioned lawyers. So 4 things, maybe if you can off the top of your head. Favorite book, favorite series, favorite movie, and what do you think about lawyers in general?
It's going to sound really pretentious, really pretentious. I'm not saying this to sound pretentious because I hate pretentious people, but it's really hard for a reader that's read a lot to kill your darlings. And I mean, I read so much that I wish I had like a system in my computer where I like organize them and put like a little note. It's impossible for me to like remember everything I've read. So what strikes me, of course, is the things I've recently read that impacted me that I really loved. So I do read kind of broad, like I read literature, but then I read a lot of like socioeconomic literature as well. Let's say I read a piece 2 summers ago that was called Evicted. It was a big seller in the States, which was pretty much a reporter going underground and examining the real estate market in the United States and how poor people are shuttled between different forms of like temporary housing and how they just never really catch up, that like how the real estate market is really privatized and there's a lot of incentive for people to make money but not so much for, so like I love that type of literature that like examines different structures in society and how they affect like the little man, whatever it's called, like the average Joe. But when we like literature, which is like more creative writing, what strikes me, which I've also recommended to everybody that I like that they should read it, it was a novel I read a few months ago that's called A Little Life, which is really just, ever since I read that, it's been, I've had like a literature hangover because it's just nothing ever is
close
quite
to
as
it.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit offended, by the way, that you sent this book to everyone you like, and I guess I lost it in the mail somewhere. Maybe went to the junk mail, missed the message. Maybe you typed in the wrong Charles Österlund, but I just never saw it. So
I don't know. I feel like I know that you're an avid reader, but I just feel like you are more prone to. Just 1 second. 1 second.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, sorry. It was just the post.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. They still do that over there? The post?
The postman comes.
So what does he send? What do they send nowadays?
Letters, bills.
They still send bills by paper. I thought they're all environmentally friendly over there.
A lot of it is automized and you can still get less, but there's digital letter boxes or whatever. Like I have one, so all letters that comes from like public authorities, like I have a digital inbox, but there's still some that comes
physical
through mail. Yeah. But anyway, the reason I haven't recommended you, just to like tie up what we were talking about, is because I feel like you're more into like business and self-improvement, and I don't really see you as, but maybe I'm mistaken, I don't necessarily have seen you ever discuss like a creative piece of writing, but maybe you do enjoy those things.
Is the book by Hanya Yanagihara, A Little Life?
Yeah. That's the one.
I probably butchered his last name, or her last name.
It's actually a her. She's Japanese, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Extremely good piece of writing that just really makes you feel a lot of different stuff where you're like, I wish I would have written this.
Have you considered writing a book? Is that
yet again a very triggering, pretentious question that's going to require like a pretentious answer? But I mean, I love writing, so
yeah. Like you like writing more than Facebook statuses, or you like writing?
No, I like writing. I've pretty much written my entire life, but I mean, I don't mind. I'm not on Facebook that much, but I do use my Instagram sometimes to like get stuff out. But the format in itself is not really equipped for writing because it's just so short and fast. And sometimes I miss like a forum where I can like write more in depth. But I definitely use Instagram to do like cute little like stories where I like get creative with it sometimes.
What's a cute little story if you remember one?
No, but I like being funny on Insta story, and I also like being political. So I don't know. I might like take something that's happening right now, like on within like pop culture or politics, and I might like put my own spin on it and just post it to make people laugh or maybe to make people think. I don't know if they think that much, but I mean,
So
yesterday I wrote. I'm on an Instagram detox right now since yesterday, but I don't. But you don't watch my stories. But yesterday I passed by an antique shop here. No, it wasn't an antique shop. It was a book. It was a bookstore with used books, and there was a book that was written by Bill Clinton, former U.S. president, and
yeah.
the title of the book was Giving. So then I just got like an epiphany. So then I wrote on my Instagram. I was like, kind of odd that this book is written by Bill Clinton because I see him more as a receiver than a giver.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, cute little things like that.
little jabs here and there.
I don't know if the millennials got that reference. I don't even know if they know who Bill Clinton is, but you know.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting time because some people like, you try to think about it. You're like, how older generations might be like, you guys don't know anything anymore and you don't know how to do this or do that, like let's say practical things. But then you also wonder, is it actually important for them to learn those things? Or are we just saying it's important for them to learn those things because we know those things and we want them to eat the same shit we ate and like bring them back to our level type thing. So that's sort of like the tricky thing there too, is that if we try to get people to do sort of what we were doing before, then maybe nothing new might come out of it. And I'm not saying that we're going in the right direction, like that I feel like we're going in the right direction, but it's also a question that could be asked. Sometimes you're just trying to push your own agenda onto people and be like, oh, because I did this, you should do that sort of thing.
No, totally. Yeah.
And then again, they're like, who cares if Bill Clinton did that with that person and this and that, like, might not affect their lives. But it is good to get some context because these people are running countries and political policies that are affecting. So it should be known. But in any case, you mentioned one of your sort of favorite books in a way, favorite recent books, which is A Little Life. And does it teach like sort of any principles in a way, or is it just like the writing that you enjoyed? Like what is it like a story?
It was the plot. I'm not going to get into the plot because I feel but it's really about, principles. Well, I guess like principles of life, then it talks a lot about in a creative way. I guess you learn a lot about love, friendship, and like vulnerability. And it's just very beautifully written. And I feel like the person that wrote it, obviously these characters are made up, but she has a lot of insight into human psychology, which I found fascinating. So it's not just a creative piece of writing. I feel like she's really in tune with like human psychology and how we're wired and stuff. So it's just a beautiful piece of work, honestly.
No, and that's why, like, even though I like to read, let's say, more practical books in a way, like, I don't know what could be other terms, scientific, things of this nature, that are a bit more dry. I do find when people are able to take these dry concepts and turn them into a more digestible format, it sort of helps people maybe understand it's always like metaphors, right? If you could come up with good metaphors, it just helps people understand things.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a good thing in general, because not everyone wants to read that dry stuff because they're just like, this is boring, this is too analytical, this is too this is too that. But when you put it in a little story with little characters and everything, they learn those lessons. Like, wow, it's so nice what Billy did to Jane. And so.
Yeah. Totally. I don't know if I learned anything, but I was definitely enriched after having read it.
Well, I guess that's good enough. That's good enough.
Yeah.
And
then you asked me about my favorite series, right?
Movie.
Yeah.
And what do you think about Lawyers then? That's the next one after that, after those three.
So series is kind of easy, super cliche, but I'm a big Sopranos fan. I think Sopranos is kind of like one of the best things that's ever been made on old school TV. So definitely Sopranos, with the whole plot of like an Italian mafia New Jersey, really tough guy who simultaneously has like psychological mental problems, and you follow him in therapy. I just find it genius. It's just so well done. It's just also genius. So I would say Sopranos is a winner there. And when it comes to movies, I honestly don't watch that much anymore because I really feel like I've become that like digital modern consumer where I have a hard time really focusing on a film for like an hour 40. Like I find my attention span works pretty okay with like a series of like half an hour, 40 minutes. Once we're talking like plus 1 hour, I find myself checking the phone and taking breaks. Like it's hard for me to maintain attention.
Yeah.
Unless so, but I generally sway away from these commercial Hollywood movies. So when I do watch, I try to find more art house movies and more underground movies, like more independent artistic movies.
Yeah.
So lately I've watched 2 Asian movies that were great. One was Parasite, that I think won an Academy Award. That was amazing, Korean movie. And then actually a few days ago, I watched a Japanese movie called Shoplifters. And it's just like beautiful movies that kind of like make you think a little bit, and they're not like black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once I do watch a movie once in a blue moon, it's pretty much not going to be something on Netflix. It's going to be something that I researched about, and it's going to be like probably some movie from like Lebanon or Korea.
But it's interesting that you said Parasite because it rings a bell in my head, like if someone mentioned it, and I think it's on Netflix.
I don't think it's on Netflix, to be honest, but I mean, you probably read about it or heard about it somewhere because it was kind of big, like, and it apparently won an Academy Award, so you've probably seen it.
Okay.
Or, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Yannick and Robertico, 2 friends of yours, watched it at some point, so they might have talked to you about it.
Yeah, that's why, because you know how you said that and you're like, I like underground, and then you mentioned that and I'm like, wait, that's on mainstream platform. So I'm like,
no, that's not.
I'm like, did she get swindled on there? You know, like, oh, this is an indie film. Whoop.
No,
And they're getting,
I mean, it's a film that won a lot of acclaim, so I guess it's not indie anymore. But it's more the type of movie that I was talking about, like, yeah.
I get you. More like the story or the context has to be good because they don't have the budget for exploding cars and
Totally.
big name people.
Yeah, like more the nuances of things. And I think there's a theme when it comes to my favorite series and my favorite movies. They're all characters that aren't black and white. They're not inherently good and they're not inherently black. They're not inherently good and they're not inherently bad, which means that you as a viewer, you get to like choose and second guess yourself and change your view on them rather than being served like a ready-made concept where it's like, this is the bad guy and this is good guy. It's like, really, we're all human, right? So we're all super complex characters, which, I mean, all of us carry good and bad. And it's just, I think Sopranos is really good at showing that. Sometimes you're really sympathetic to Tony Soprano and you kind of like the guy. And then other points you're like, whoa, but he's doing really horrific things. Same with Parasite. They're like a family, a really tight-knit family. They're super close to each other, super loving, yet they're living their life on morally questionable grounds. Same with the Japanese movie I watched, which is called Shoplifters. Tight-knit family. There's a darkness and a little thing that you end up like realizing at the end of the movie. Like morally questionable people that are still likable. I kind of am a sucker for a theme like that.
Well, isn't that everyone in a way?
Well, yeah, that's why I find like Hollywood or Netflix typical movies kind of fake, because I just don't really believe the idea.
Yeah. You're like wondering, what's the Hulk doing while he's not being filmed, guys? What is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Or is he just sitting there waiting for the camera to turn on? Oh, the camera's on. All right, let's do this. So, and then, what do you think about lawyers in general? You know, you went down the law path, and do you think lawyers are an integral part of society? Do you think they've done more good than bad in general? Like, because were lawyers a thing? Like, do you know the history of lawyers? I don't know the history, but I'm just wondering if you know the history, like when they actually came about, like who sort of said like, we need this, guys?
No, I don't.
So then with what you do know, what do you think? Because I think the lawyer part is good in the way that you learn how to like analyze words, situations, I guess, for the most part. and you could sort of shuffle through a lot of information
Yeah.
and like have some Jedi mind powers. But the other side of it is like from some lawyers that I've met, I was always like, oh, why? What type of law do you do? And they're like, criminal law, for example, and or tax laws or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, okay, why do you do that? They're like, well, most of the money is in defending criminals because they have the money. And then I'm like, that's interesting that you'd go down that path. And they're like, yeah, the laws are sort of like you can go into protecting the innocent, they say, but they don't usually have the money to pay the bills because they're getting screwed by the guys that have the money to
Are
then
these PR lawyers that you're talking about?
some yes, but also there's been other lawyers that have been like they started off defending the good guy, and only wanting to take cases where they're like, if someone came in and they knew that the guy was not telling them what the actual situation was, and he might have actually did something illegal or something he shouldn't have done, they would like, I don't want to take your case. But then they also realize that the guys that are getting sort of screwed by the law and they actually weren't wrong, or they, whatever it might have been, they realize that sometimes those guys didn't have the same financial resources to maybe pay the bills that, like, the lawyer lifestyle, right? Most people that study lawyers don't want to be broke. They're doing it for like some sort of financial
No.
end.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think it's a question of like, you're like, how are lawyers? It's like, well, it depends on what type of law you're doing. You have everything from like environmental lawyers that pretty much like working really hard to maintain like, I don't know, a lake somewhere. And at the
Yeah.
same time, you have these lawyers that work in criminal court and they're defending like the bad guys that you're talking about. And then you have like the type of lawyer that I was, which is pretty much just working in an office doing contract work. Like
Gotcha.
I worked with commercial law the 3 years where I worked in a law firm. So it was just business, like in people doing business. It wasn't that personal. So I think it's so hard to like
But do you think
have a
like lawyers sort of
stereotype of
slow
who the
down?
lawyer is if they slow down.
Like it slows down processes, because like back in the day it was a handshake, and now it's like, nah, handshake's not good enough. You need to have it in writing. You need to have all these clauses. You
Yeah, but
know,
the thing is, you don't need to over. I mean, there's definitely cultural differences with laws in different countries. I don't know if you come from a more like American type of viewed law, where it's like, Americans are kind of known to be very like kind of regulating everything down to a T. And like American contracts, when we used to get them in my law firm, we used to be like, oh my God, they literally wrote like 40 pages of something that we could have written like two. So I think that the type of law background that I come from, what they really stressed in law school and my law firm was very much like simplify. A lot of it was like simplifying, like don't use overly complicated words unless you have to. Don't write 40 pages if you can be more to the point, because the more words, the more room for misinterpretation, right? So I I think you were really like you really nailed it when you were like the skills of a lawyer, because it really is about that. It's about being able to like view an accumulation of information and like very quickly like systematize that and block out the things that are like really not important, and like with a hawkeye kind of like identifying the main topics and issues. That's kind of what we go to school learning. You don't learn about laws, you learn like a craft pretty much, which honestly I think is pretty much the craft is blocking out the bullshit and just getting straight to the point.
yeah.
I think that's what my law background kind of gave me, that I don't really have a lot of time or patience with the bullshit, all the around. I'm very much into like, yes, and what do you mean by this? Do you know what I mean? Like, pretty much you have to get to a point for us to be able to argue for your case, right? So
Yeah.
and with that said, I don't know how lawyers are. I do know that I didn't have a lot of things in common with people in law school. I found them kind of nerdy and like boring. And I feel like I was more bohemian and free and a little bit more like less conservative in my. So, I mean, I guess in law school was a lot of like good guys and good girls that like did what their parents expected of them, and they had good grades and they continued with that. I just felt like there wasn't really room for like misfits or more fun personalities in law school. I didn't make that many friends, which is weird because I make friends everywhere I go. So that was, but then when I worked in the commercial field, I mean, they like money and they are oftentimes smart, and there's a lot of money in it.
Sure.
At least where I was working, money was flowing in. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's nice. But I mean, obviously, I'm not practicing law anymore, and I don't really see myself as a typical lawyer, so it's hard for me to like generalize.
Yeah. No, I guess
Mm.
I'm just looking at it from the outside, and I see that generally lawyer. Well, I guess that's also. I think it's in every country, but a lot of lawyers, like they, especially like in the States, right? There's some lawyers that just sit in a park and they're waiting for something to happen to be like, hey, let's sue these guys, you know?
Mm.
And it's like they sort of just use it like that. And I find it's more causing issues than anything. It's like, I think there was a stat with parks in the States. The reason why they're disappearing is because it was costing a lot of money to the cities and the places that had them, because they're getting like law cases, like lawsuits from them, right? Because some kid fell off the jungle gym, and now they're
Well,
suing the state because, hey, you
well,
should have made the jungle gym 2 feet instead of 2.5 feet, and
right.
like,
Well, you're talking about the American law system, which is like
yeah,
legal system, which is like you can't compare that to me, who's like trained in Europe, worked in Sweden. It's like it's just we don't sue each
that's different.
other as frequently here. We don't sue each other because we bought a coffee cup with
Yeah.
hot coffee from McDonald's and we spilled it in our lap. I mean, it's not the way our legal system is built, and there's no bullshit money to be made in Sweden. You don't sue people left and right. So I think that's more an American legal culture, which definitely I don't agree with. But then again, I'm not overly interested in it either. Like I don't really care.
So you're saying, though, from what you've seen, that doesn't really happen anywhere else except for.
No. I think that's very typically American, the way with lawsuits, how they function, and definitely, and that goes back to, I mean, I have no idea. I haven't researched this at all, so I don't know, but I'm guessing, like, I mean, from my own tiny experience, every time I used to see like an American contract written by an American law firm, it was a lot of like regulation, like it was a lot of text. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
saying like something in 40 pages that we would have written in 4. So I mean, that kind of leaves room, that's like micromanaging, and kind of trying to regulate every possible thing that could happen. And I guess that their legal system is built in a way where it's easier to sue. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's a whole nother thing.
Exactly.
But it was just interesting to see what sort of your thought on that is. And then you were mentioning before, like this sort of cutthroat approach in the business world, like a firm that you're working for. So what do you think about that? Do you think that, because you talked a little bit about like how the younger generation's going, the business world, like what do you think about business in a sense? Like, do you think it's getting into a point where businesses are too efficient, they're taking the fun out of things, and they're just trying to make money to make more money to make more money? Do you think that's all right? It's not all right? How do you sort of see that whole thing playing out?
I mean, I guess the culture where I come from, the Swedish culture, where there's definitely work-life balance, like it's the way our system is created. There's work-life balance, and also there's been a huge movement with unions here that really the worker isn't just like a random Joe that you can exploit for your own economical purposes. It kind of like shaped the way I see business. I see definitely business as definitely you should be efficient and do what you're hired to do, but I definitely don't. I definitely think that there needs to be a humane aspect in business where you, at the end of the day, attend to like people, and that you create a work environment that is adapted to people and not just like efficiency and productivity. I think that you can attain productivity by actually being fair to people too.
Because you mentioned like some people don't think, like you said that like very briefly. It was like a little comment that you threw, and you're like, maybe people don't think, if they do. And so I'm just wondering, like, because when you look into unions, right? I don't know much about unions, but I would guess they sort of have like a everyone is equal type thing. Everyone in our union is the same, but it's like they actually might not be the same. Joe
No,
might be better than Bob, and
Yeah,
Bob might be better than Joe and Jane together. So
but it's not like Swedish economy, for example, that's very much backed by years of unions. That's like kind of the workers' right today is kind of the product of the work done by the unions. It's not like John, for example, who's super efficient and like great at what he does, that he doesn't enjoy a raise or extra bonuses due to his work. It's just, it creates a level playing field where it's just like workers cannot be exploited in whatever way the employer pleases, which means that there are rules and regulations about working hours. And if you work on Saturdays and Sundays, you get paid extra because it's typically time that you're supposed to spend with your family or off time, or you're allowed to certain weeks of vacation during the year, because we aren't robots, like we're human. And I believe that you can be efficient yet treating people fairly and dignified. Maybe you can't be efficient the way a Chinese factory would view efficiency, but that type of efficiency is not something that I find is like the future of business.
What do you think is the future of business?
I don't know. I don't know what future of business is. I just know what I don't really agree with, and it's putting profit over people. I think that you can manage profit while at the same time not being an asshole to people. And maybe sometimes you need to like have a little bit less profit, but then have like a clean conscience of how you treat people in your workforce, how you treat the environment. I hope that the future of business is less productivity and getting X amount of products out on the market during a minimal amount of time, and more like, okay, what are our company values and how are we treating our workers, and are we in tune with like the environment and political, stuff that's happening around the world. I've never run a big business, so I'm just speaking freely.
No, it's interesting to sort of to like just ponder about and think about it, because I think like, yeah, there is some truth behind that, but also you said like, we're human. I'm like, what's the difference between being human and animals?
Like intellect, the ability to like analyze.
But isn't that just like isn't that just like we're the ones who are setting the bar, so it's very easy for us to pass the bar, in a way. Like, we're not asking like, hey dog, what do you think
like if we were
about
like
humans?
ruled by cows, we were like ruled by cows, then it would be like cow rules applying. Well, I mean, I would love being a cow because I would like lay in grass and like just talk with my homies all day until I was killed. So like I mean, I don't know if cows have the same ability to like organize a society. Maybe they do,
Yeah,
maybe they do.
sharks are around still. There's
I have
lobsters.
respect for animals. I really do. I get bored with animals. Like, I'm not really an animal person. I have the utmost respect for animals, but yeah.
So
I don't think a cow is as intellectual as I am.
So you don't see like humans and like what you're saying, humans, us right now, and apes similar. Like, you don't, like, you're sort of separating yourself. You're like, I'm a human, that's a monkey. That's an ape.
Everybody that's ever watched National Geographics know that we are so similar to apes. Like, I love when they like play with each other's hair and stuff. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I would totally be that ape. But I don't know where you're headed with this question. I feel like we're going into like animal kingdom territory, and I'm not really. I don't feel like.
No, I'm not. It's not nothing specific. It's just like you're mentioning the union side, the fact of efficiency, rights, this and that, and then like I'm sort of wondering, with all that, it's like, who decides where the bar is on what's acceptable? You even said like, Saturdays and Sundays are like days you shouldn't be working, and I'm like, who decided that? Why do we even have 7-day schedules? Why do we have the calendar as it is, and then why are we structured around the calendar as such?
No, but the thing is, I think we agree on that point. I agree with you. Like, definitely, like
what if normal life was flipped around? Like, we live during the night and then during the day we were all sleeping,
Yeah,
you know? And
exactly.
then people were like, "Oh, I'm getting
Exactly.
up tonight at 8 p.m. and I'm gonna work, and this is we're all gonna hang out at 12 p.m. at night, and we're gonna
I
go
mean, I
swimming."
totally get where you're headed. And like, I, for example, I am a huge fan of like the 4 hour workday, for example. I don't think that we need 8 hours to do work unless it's like extraordinary points where you have a big deadline or big project, whatever. So definitely all of those things are up for grabs. Like you could change. Those are just structures in society that have been in place for a long time and they became the bar, just like you say. However, do have to say that there are definitely, I'm sure, psychological and physiological arguments behind it. Like like we are mostly efficient during the day, unless you're like night type of person. We definitely feel good by 5 weeks extended holiday per year. I mean, there's just scientific proof to the fact that after you've worked, it's kind of good for you to have a break of like 2 days. I don't really care if those days are Saturdays and Sundays. You could have those days like Tuesday and Wednesday. But I mean, I do think that
But
there's
it
a
does affect people
foundation.
though.
In what way?
Like, for example, in our own operations, people don't want to
Yeah.
work a Sunday. They're like, "Oh no, Sunday's fun day." It even rhymes, so it must be right.
Then
You
well,
can't fight with the rhymes, guys.
yeah. But I mean,
Must be
I
true.
just find it a non-issue because whoever you are employing or whoever you're working with is going to require downtime to be able to come back and provide you full efficiency. If you want to have a business where you're like, Monday is actually my fun day, then, by all means do it. But,
Yeah. But then
there's some,
you won't get that actual happy hour of Saturday. So
I just find like downtime is important when you're working.
yeah. But also the important thing is working while you're working. And
Totally.
a lot of people are not working while they're working, and then they want the extra time off, and then they want this, and then they want that. And then
Well,
they
yeah.
saw something on the TV and they're like, "Hey guys, in this one company, people only work 1.5 hours and then they sleep the rest of the time, and then they sing kumbaya for 3 hours of it. And it's great."
But I mean, you wouldn't hire that person. And if you did,
Yeah.
that person would be out within 2 weeks. So that's also a non-issue. Like the whole foundation of what I'm speaking of, like kind of like like the starting point is that it's a normally functioning person that actually goes to work and works. But then again, I don't think that everybody's efficient all hours of the workday. Far
Mhm.
from it. But let's just say you have a worker that achieves his or her goals.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So for yourself, after you finished, let's say your formal studies, did you continue to sort of actively try to learn and develop yourself, or did you slow down, or are you like, how did you sort of play that out? Because what I also see, even though I'm younger, is that people sort of stop after they finish formal education. They're like, "I am educated enough now. I can function the rest of my 75 more years on this planet, or 80 more years, and I'm going to be fine. I don't need to learn anything else."
Hmm.
Do you how did that play out for yourself? Like, do you find that you yourself continue to develop and push yourself, or not so much? Or and why did you slow down? Like, let's say in school you're studying very intensely, you said, and then you just shift the gear down. You went from sixth gear down to you're just cruising on third.
Yeah. I mean, no, listen, when I did that university degree of like 4 or 5 years, and then plus that I studied Spanish, like Spanish literature in university too, just for
Yeah.
fun. Let's just say I'm not really keen on going back to school, if that's what you mean. So if it's learning like academically, like even though sometimes I can be like, oh, I wish I could like have the energy to like study psychology and become like a
Why don't
psychologist.
you do
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
no, well, I could do it theoretically, but you know what it is? Like once you've done like one of those big ass like university degrees, it's tough. It requires a lot of commitment, a lot of time. It's not easy because if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So if you ask me if I'm ready to go back to academia and like, no, I don't have any. However, learning can be done in so many different ways. I think I'm constantly learning in the way that I'm a person that craves information and craves like intellect, being stimulated intellectually. So I think I'm constantly learning, but it's just more selective learning, which is like I read books with like themes that fascinate me.
Yeah.
I watch documentaries that I like to learn more about. I read a lot of like good articles and like good online magazines about different things that interest me. So I am constantly learning. However, I'm just not learning in the traditional sense of the way where I'm like graded or like somebody's
Sure.
like, yeah.
Do you
So I
grade
think
yourself?
however, I do agree that if I was in the sixth gear, I've definitely slowed down because I also am like a person that likes to like enjoy life. And my 20s was all about the hustle. It was just hustling, doing a lot of stuff to create this foundation, the CV. I did a lot of stuff where I didn't really get any profit back. I
Hmm.
mean, not directly. So I feel like now in my 30s, I've become a little bit more where I'm like, I don't have to make X amount. It's because if I can make like amount Y and I'm still living okay, I'd rather have my like downtime where I can surf or socialize or read books or like, I'm not keen on like killing myself anymore for like success.
And let's say if everyone shares these sort of views, right?
Mm.
How do you see the future going?
Well, in my case, it would be going well because I still get shit done. But I get that not everybody can
Yeah.
like work the way I do and get shit done. I don't know. I just find like for me, I can't judge for anybody else. I just find work-life balance really
Yeah.
important. And for a person that studied her ass off and then worked in a really intense environment, the legal, I just kind of enjoy working hard, but also like just toning it down a little bit. Like,
Yeah, but what I'm sort of saying is like, what is the that's actually maybe better. There, no, sounds worse. They did like this $10 million studio over here. I have this low light right here that from Sweden, from Ikea, that
yay.
it's just blinding me. It's blinding my eyes. But in any case, no, because what I'm wondering is like, let's say you're surviving. You're saying, you're able to do what you want to do, but I'm saying, what is it sort of leading to, right? Like,
The now. What do you mean leading to the now? It's about living. I mean, the now. It's about feeling good now. It's about day to day. It's about like
yeah, but
enjoying.
the legacy side of yourself, the legacy side of society, like you're living your own life, right? And what is it going to is it supposed to leave some sort of impact? Are you trying to leave some sort of impact? Or you're just
No.
like, yo, I'm here right now. I'm just gonna do I'm gonna try to do as little damage as possible, use as little resources as possible, just have enough to do my thing. I'll be over here, guys. If you want to talk once in a while.
I don't think that everybody needs to leave a legacy. I don't think I'm gonna leave a legacy. I'll be like, she was funny. She did some jokes. Some of them were nice. Some of them
Yeah,
were less nice. She was kind of cute, but also a little bit like dumb sometimes. Like I don't know if that's my legacy. Then so be it. I don't think I'm that important in the grand
yeah,
scheme of things that I need to leave a legacy. I'll leave that to other people that are more passionate about leaving legacies. I'm just
yeah,
about trying to make myself as good as I can be, which means like spiritual, mental growth, emotional growth, like kind of
yeah,
fixing, tweaking myself. So trying to like work on myself so I don't commit the same personal errors time and time again. So I guess that's my mission, whatever. But I think this legacy thing is very Americanized way of viewing life. And I just feel like everybody's complete, everybody's already done just by being born and being good people. I don't think a human needs to be productive. I think a human is complete and full
yeah,
and wonderful just by being born. I don't think you need to prove anything or achieve anything. That's a very liberal market type of view of being a human being.
yeah.
I think it's fine to accomplish jack shit in your life, to be honest, if that's what you want.
But if that's the case, where's that gonna lead?
I mean,
And
there's going to be
then
plenty of other people that want to do those things. I mean, it's just there's going to be balance. You're going to have people that are going to be more focused on creating. Like not everybody needs to be like a scientist
sure.
creating this big cure for the world. Some Joe maybe just wants to go about his day and like plant flowers in his garden, and that's fine. There's always going to be enough doers. I mean,
But
for
what if
God's
there's a
sakes.
Joe that just wants to go around and just destroy that guy's flowers all day?
Well,
And he finds enjoyment in that. He's like, yeah, I like just destroying stuff.
Capitalism? Isn't that capitalism ruining everybody's flowers?
In what sense?
I mean, literally, if we like would have switched up the system and we would have had a system where you are born, and just by being born and being a good human, you would have like a, you know, there's been political proposals of this actually, of having like how do you say in Spanish, it would be un sueldo de ciudadano. How would you translate
universal income sort of thing?
Not a universal income, whereas you would
universal.
Exactly, universal income system, which pretty much like you're human, you're born, you're not a criminal. We're gonna give you X amount of money to live your life. So I mean, I don't know.
Would that mean that there would be only one country? Like it would be Earth. We're all citizens of Earth, and then that's it. Like, how would that be run if there's a universal, or is it like?
I don't know how it would be run. I'm just saying, like, when I'm saying like capitalism is destroying people's flowers, I mean, like, I find our innate nature is about other things than being in a factory like 10 hours a day creating some plastic component that goes into a cell phone. Do you know what I mean? I mean, those people are necessary and it's all good, right? But it's not really our innate human nature. I would think like smelling the flowers is way more innately human than the other things. But then, you know, we need production, we need efficiency. Like, I'm not a hippie that wants to live in a cave. Not at all. I mean, I'm a product of capitalist society. I love money. I am Persian. I do love money. So it's not that I don't, it's not like I don't, but I think it's very important to like discuss these things. And I'm not a hardcore capitalist type of person.
Because you said like, you don't think people should live in a like be in a factory and stuff like that in a way. But it's like, then again, they don't have to be in a factory. If like maybe for, let's say you are in a factory right now, okay? Like that might be the situation right now, but hypothetically, you can climb your way up, or you could find another opportunity, or you can do something else, right?
Well,
but it's like some people, they just throw their hands up and they're like, hey guys, like, this is your fault that I'm here. And the guy's like, I'm just making iPhones, you know, like, and then I was looking for people to work here and you signed up. Like, I didn't force you to bring your application. I didn't force you to work here.
But that's, you're again like conveying a liberal chain of thought where your philosophy, if I interpret you correctly, you're kind of like, we're all born with two bare hands, and whatever we make of it, it's kind of like your own thing. So if you create success, then you're like, good on you, and if you don't, that's kind of on you. Whereas I come from a school of thought where it's more like, not everybody's born into a level playing field. Not everybody has the intellectual tools or the capitalistic tools or of being able to do that. That person might be in China and have to, like, I don't know, sustain like 5 family members, and that person might be from a really poor neighborhood where he never really had an actual opportunity to even like read. So like expecting every person to like come into this world with the same type of prerequisites to create success, I just find that like very liberal. And I think that's what socialism is about, which is leveling the playing field. I think what a lot of people get wrong with socialism is that they think like, well, like you said before, like, well, if Joe's working harder and like he went to school, why is he gonna like share with like Karina, who's like a slacker who didn't do jack shit? It's not about that. Like, society, Joe is gonna be way more successful money-wise and in every other aspect. It's just about creating a level playing field where Karina, the day that she decides to not be a slacker and go to school, even though she's a single mom, there are mechanisms in society that allow her to do so, and not being like, well, you're like, excuse my, you're like a loser. I was going to say an ugly profanity, but I'm not going to say that. You're a loser. So you know what? You didn't do jack shit. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to, because I know what you're saying about what you think I'm saying, and you might be right that I might have said something along those lines, but I'm just like, sort of like putting things out there in a way, because how I also see it is that people from all places in the world have come from either fortunate or quote unquote unfortunate situations and have managed to do good and bad, or successful, not successful, whatever you want to consider your measuring stick is, or the term. There's people from all walks of life, all countries, that manage to pull it together, you know? And like what you said, if you're born into a thing of 5 family members and this and that, when you're born, you don't know what family, you don't know what the concept of family is.
Mm.
You're taught that concept,
Mm.
you know? You should respect your dad, you should respect your mom, your brothers, your sisters, and this and that. And it's like, what if you were born with no brothers or sisters or fathers or mothers, or you were abandoned and adopted and this and that? So that's why I always think, some people are like, oh, this is my father. And I'm like, why is he your father? Because like I was born from him, right? And I'm like, okay, that's, I guess, one definition in a way. And you hear that stat with like babies being mixed up in the States. Have you heard about that? Like how some babies are given to the wrong parents
Yeah.
because there's just
Yeah.
like a bunch. So I'm like, so that's even one. So some people might be like, oh, this is my father. And then in reality, what if it's not even, right?
Mm.
And then there's some people that were adopted, and then they don't even know they're adopted until they're 18. And they're like, oh, but this is my dad. And then they're like, and some people say family's blood and this and that, but I'm like, in the end, family could be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
that whole thing is like all these sort of concepts, even going back to the whole thing about weekends and days and this and that, they're all just made up by someone else.
I agree.
Now, who made them up? I don't know.
I agree.
Exactly. And that's why it's like, I think there is this animal side to all of us, that the whole thing of having it even, I don't know if that's even ideal, because like even all the time, no matter what, it's like there's just people who will abuse that in a way, and then it's like, why even be here if you're not going to do anything?
I get what you mean. And I mean, all of these things are up for like changing. Like, I mean, yeah, you just said it. Like, you're like, maybe Sunday can be Monday, and maybe dad could be something else. They're all just words that we give certain meaning, right? Like even money that we're coming back to time and time again in our talk, that's just an illusion too. Like, it's just something, they're just digits on a screen pretty much. They're not even tangible in the sense that they were before. You can't even touch money anymore. So it's just a thought that we collectively adhere to. But then I guess that you need a movement where you're like, oh, well, hey, my name's Charles. I hate Sunday. Sunday's not a fun day. I'd rather be Monday. Then you create your grassroots movement and you challenge that. And, I think a lot of societal changes, I mean, women couldn't vote. Now they can. People didn't have holidays before. Now they do. I mean, a lot of changes in society come from somebody waking up one day being like, hey, this is weird. Like, why don't we do it this way instead? So, I mean, it's all the road for you is open, or for your peers that have that motivation. And I definitely commend you, but I'm not that person in my life. I'm not as passionate about those things. I am more passionate about my inner development, not so much leaving a legacy externally, more like trying to strive to being a better human and not repeating the same mistakes in Sepi's life. Maybe that sounds narcissistic. It's not narcissistic, but it's the way I'm wired, I guess. Yeah.
No, it's just that it's just interesting to see, and I get what you're saying too with the whole legacy thing. Like legacy thing is like a sort of an American pop concept, it's just like, you got to leave a legacy, and but sometimes I think legacy also, how I see it, is like you got to leave some sort of order or some sort of like foundation for the next guys, and
so
sort of
foundation. Sorry for interrupting, but I just really wanted to go. I guess my foundation then is like, what I want to pass on is kindness. because that's the way I was raised. Like I was raised by a dad that was very much into being fair and kind. And he
Mhm.
just always said that kindness multiplies. So if there's any legacy I would like to leave behind, that would be being kind to somebody, cutting a person some slack, and then him or her passing it on.
And then is there ever a point where you're too kind or not kind enough? Like how does someone judge that?
No, I'm sure I fail at being kind of like any other human. I mean, I'm not perfect or Mother Teresa at all. But I think in most of my choices and most of my
Yeah.
interactions with people, I am inherently kind. I mean, it's weird saying that you're kind about yourself, but I don't think I'm unkind. I can be bitchy. That's a different thing. I think sometimes that's necessary. I'm not dumb, but I think my moral compass is always pretty like spot on.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about it. I was like, imagine you're at a restaurant, you tip them like, let's say the normal is 15%, you give them 25%. And then the guy's like looking at it, he's like, I think you could be a little kinder. And you're like, yo, I just gave you 25%, like 10. Yeah, but hey, why are you getting mad? I think you could be kinder. Don't get mad.
Yeah.
And you have these people that are like, hey, give me more kindness.
Right.
Or they have a
Well,
different gauge of what kindness is. There's no,
mm,
this is kind, and anything above that is godly, and anything below that is, I don't know what would be below that, shitty.
right.
So it's just like because I guess you're sort of working on yourself, and that's in a way already a good start, because there's some people that instead of even working on themselves, they just try to tear other people down.
Mm,
Like that's what they base their life on maybe tearing others down or just causing shit just to cause shit. Because that's the other
mm,
thing, how you're saying like, you can start grassroots movements, but sometimes people think of a grassroots movement and they just do it because of the heat of the moment and they don't actually understand where it might be leading to.
mm-hmm.
So in the end, there's also a lot of responsibility with that, with people that are trying to come up with new ways to move
Mm,
forward as a society, because it's very complex, because everyone has their own philosophies, everyone has their own values. It varies
mm,
from person to person, country to country, family to family, everything, right? So it's
mm,
like, how do you make a system that is not too, let's say, wordy? How like you have like that 40-page thing that you mentioned from the Americans, let's say,
mm,
when they're making a contract. How do you
mm,
turn that into a one-page thing that
mm,
can work across the board?
right.
And I guess that's something that will be to be seen in the future. But it's like, yeah, you're saying, okay, the socialist side is maybe one way, the capitalist side is another way. Which way is right or wrong? I think there's people that are smiling on both sides. There's people that that manage to find happiness on
Exactly.
in all systems.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then also there's a lot of people that are pretty pissed off about the systems that they're
Yeah.
in. And it's sort of true. Like, you don't want I don't know. It's like, I think in the end, anyone eventually who just keeps taking and taking and taking and is a bit of a leech or a parasite, no matter
Mm-hmm.
how kind you are or how equal thinking you think things should be, I think like people take note of that. They're like, yeah,
Totally. And I think,
they're like, do you see Bob over here? Like, this guy just took 25 donuts again. Is someone
yeah,
going to tell
what's that
something to this
about?
guy? And you go to
Yeah,
Bob,
like
and
Bob.
Bob's like, hey guys, chill out. Everything's equal, guys. We're all here. We're all on the same page.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Like, but like, not to get hippie on your ass, but I also think like the universe takes notice. I do definitely believe that. I think that I've seen that everything you
Yeah, but
do
then
does background.
so
Like
Bob gets
Bob
some
is
sort of
probably gonna get like a heart attack later. He's gonna eat too many donuts,
so listen to this right here. He eats too many donuts, he gets a heart attack, and then the system saves him because he has the free care, guys. He has the free best medical care. So the
Yeah, but
doctors bring him back to good health, and then he goes back a week later, and they're like, "What the? I thought Bob just had a heart attack." Nah, man, the doctor saved him. He's back at it. He's gonna keep taking them donuts.
but maybe Bob will like his close to death experience will maybe get him to reevaluate life, and then he'll be like, "Oh my god, I just
No,
don't want to be a so eating donuts all the
Bob,
time. I want to
Bob
be like
don't
a
get
Buddhist
it.
monk. I want to be a Buddhist monk, like doing Buddhist things, whatever those things are, like
Yeah, whatever
ringing that
Buddhists
bell
do.
they do in like Buddhist convents."
Do you know anything about Buddhism?
No, but I don't know enough, but I'm very like non-religious, and I'm not into religion at all, but I always thought that if I had to pick any religion to like whatever, then it would be like Buddhism, but
And why is
please
that?
let's not get into that because I don't know enough and it's just gonna make me appear like really dumb.
No, but why out of all of the religions, you're like, even though you know nothing about all of them, let's say, or not much about all of them, why did you say like, Buddhism?
Because I feel like, I mean, I wouldn't know, like,
Is it like
I would,
after atheism? Like it's just like
I,
you have all the religion, all the types, and then you're like atheism, Buddhism's next. I'm just gonna try that one.
yeah, no, I just feel like a lot of the other religions, like the mainstream ones, are like very much like about shame and shaming and like rules and like you need to do this, you need to do that, which I'm very much against. And I feel like Buddhism is more about like being a kind person and like it's about like enhancing yourself, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken, and less about like you shouldn't do this because that's shameful or you shouldn't do that because you'll go to hell.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like that, right? If you're living on this sort of righteous path, you don't have to worry about the other things because you wouldn't even do those other things. Like they don't have to
Right.
mention don't kill people because they're like, if you're on the path, you have no reason to go down that path.
Exactly. So there's no need for us to like micromanage you and write it down in a book that you shall not kill someone because it's like exactly that's like just be a good person and you're just automatically not going to do a
Those
lot of
things.
like stuff. Exactly. I don't
Or
need
what?
to read that in a book.
Yeah, because once they start putting don't steal, don't this, they're like, stealing ideas.
Exactly. Exactly.
You mean someone else can work and then I just have to show up and take their phone and I could get that phone? This is a great deal, man. I love this stealing
Yeah.
religion.
Totally.
So I think we sort of touched up on it, but because I was like, how do you see it moving forward? I'm a bit almost like sad that we don't have like a common, like I would have loved to maybe live during the times when they're like, we're going to go to the moon, guys. And that's like everyone's plan. Like, we're going to the moon. And everyone's just talking about it like, oh, yeah, we're going. Even though you're not going,
What we're
like
doing now
yourself.
is like what we're doing now is like guys, we're gonna put on a mask and we're gonna go to the supermarket.
Exactly.
Isn't that
It's
cool?
the muzzle. The muzzle.
Guys, let's put on a mask, and my mask has a Labrador on it, and your mask has like pink flowers on it. Let's just put it on, go to the supermarket and buy like milk.
Yeah. No, it's actually insane because you see, even when I realize how little value some companies have are the companies that started making branded masks for their brand.
Don't get me started on that because you're taking me into like a rabbit hole where I'm just gonna. It's just
But it
utterly
just shows
difficult.
you how like some companies are literally just trying to make money on
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
It's like there's no limit, there's no if the next thing is butt plugs, they're coming out with the branded butt plugs. That's
Like
happening, guys.
flowered butt plugs
Yeah.
or little teddy bear butt plugs.
And they brand it right on the end so you can see the brand when it's in.
I mean,
Which one you got?
you've clearly given this way more thought than I have, but yeah, go for it. Patent the product.
Patent the branded ones. Oh man. No,
No,
it's
no, but
really
yet again, capitalism in its essence. Like I will never forget being in New York like 10 years ago on holiday, and it just all of a sudden I was like in around like Union Square and it started raining a lot, like out of the blue. And literally it took like, I would say like it took 2 minutes and people started popping off like street vendors. So literally I looked around and every corner there was some dude selling umbrellas for $5. And I was like, but I literally just looked at that corner and nobody was there. It's like, man, like capitalism works hard, dude. Like the weather works hard, but capitalism works harder.
yeah.
So isn't that kind of like what the mask thing is about? Everybody's now wearing a mask, but I just don't really like the cutification of this thing. Like I just find it the cute. I just made up that word, but
like people like who would buy a pink mask, a baby pink mask because they have a baby pink shirt. So
Well,
they want it
yeah,
to be
because
matching.
I'm not gonna get into my. We already discussed that. I'm not gonna get into that. But
Yeah,
let's just say in a fashion, like for me,
I
masks
get
aren't
you.
fashion. So you can like in 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna take the ugliest mask just to make a statement. I'm never gonna go buy a pretty mask because I just
I
don't
understand.
really stand by the idea. So, but it's just like when people start marketing T-shirts with Che Guevara's face on it,
Yeah,
which is just like he would pretty much just roll over in his grave. He's like, but I'm like a communist and you're selling my face on an ugly t-shirt from
yeah.
China for like $5. It's just sometimes things aren't really thought through, but I mean, I guess the mass people are making shit ton of money. So I mean, good for them, I guess. I'm just not gonna
I'd be
I
surprised if they're making that much money, and even not even if they were making a lot or not. I wonder if the consumers of that even realize what's happening.
well, it's a cutification of something that I don't think should be taken lightly and made cute. I don't
But
think
that's what I'm
they
saying. Like, if they don't, like, you know how there's some people that could be like, yo, this is disgusting, that a brand that I trusted, let's just say I trusted, I don't want to say a brand that I might want to do something with in the future,
yeah,
but let's just say
brand
brand
X.
X that used to make chocolate bars
Right.
now started making masks,
Mm.
branded X.
Mm.
And there's some people that are like, this is disgusting. These guys are literally just trying to make money on me on any way. And then there's the other side of it that people are like, I'm so happy that brand X made these masks so I could be one step closer to brand X.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that most people are going that second route where they're like, oh, I'm so happy that X brand is making masks. And they're not even questioning the fact that these brands are just trying to make any money they can on you in any shape or form.
Well, I guess that's what happens when businesses that really are about making money, because that's what businesses are about, try to like ride the wave of something that's like kind of important at the moment so like let's say a company like H&M that makes a t-shirt that says like I'm a feminist, and at the same time they have sweatshops in Bangladesh where they're paying women like minimum wages to make those same t-shirts. It's kind of like a paradox, right? That they make a t-shirt called, so kind of, I think it's always problematic when capitalist interests try to like ride the wave of being like morally good, whether it's about health or feminism or anti-racism or whatever, because at the end of the day, when it boils down to it, they're all about the money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do prefer companies that are just upfront about it, like we are about the money.
That's gonna
And
be the
that's
new
it. Like
brand right there. We're in it for
I
the money, guys.
we're all about the money.
We're making that money mayo. We're making those money eggs.
The cash money bling. That's what we're about. Just be about it. But I just don't
Everyone just
like
shows
when
up to the
companies
office blinged out all the time. Yo, money make a gym.
are like the like becoming like political and trying to be like, yeah, we care about women and that's why we made this feminist t-shirt, but at the same time we're like screwing over women in Bangladesh. It's
But don't you think that's also happening, let's say, with politicians nowadays, that they wear one face on TV and in the media, and then they have a completely other face in reality? And they're like, hey guys, we should really save the environment. And then they have a V8 gas sucker car, and they're like, oh no, but I need this to be comfortable. You're
yeah.
like, but bro, I thought we're all about like, let's go another way, another direction. And they just do that,
Yeah.
or they say,
Like,
hey, you should do this, and then they do that.
yeah,
Sleight
I
of
think
hand.
not a politician, but I think Leo DiCaprio wants to like save the bears somewhere. But then I guess he rides his jet plane all over the world, private plane, to like save those bears. And of course, there's like a contradiction there.
Yeah.
But I'm so bored with politics on a like. I'm so bored with like politicians and politics, and like I'm not even monitoring the U.S. elections or anything. It just bores me. So I wouldn't know what politicians do.
But you see, that's maybe the issue is like they've managed to consume the guys that are consumable, right? Like the people that don't want to think much, that just like to be entertained all day, every day. And those are the guys that actually vote. Those are the guys that are watching this horse shit. And people like you are at the point where like you had it up to here and you're like, I don't care anymore. I might not even vote anymore because there's just a bunch of savages running around there and it's a zoo. And then what happens is those guys that are consumed by this by the Roman circus
Mm.
are the ones who actually are affecting the future direction, you know? Like, because you're not engaged anymore. You're just doing your own thing.
I
But
get it. I get what you mean. I mean, I would always vote. I think, I mean, everybody should always vote.
mhm,
Like I vote, so I do. But definitely, I am a little bit like politically bored, and definitely, if I were engaged, it would be positive.
yeah.
I'm just not.
No, because I've been talking to some people and about like let's say like psychopath characteristics and what how like you know how we think of psychopaths usually has to do with like a girl or a guy in some like relationship, right? But psychopath characteristics can show up in all types of things and
Hmm.
in all types of shapes and forms. And it's like the world in a way is run by like psychopaths because to be able to want to rule millions of people or do this or do that, like it's not a normal guy who decides to like I'm going to take upon this mission, you know?
No,
And you can have psychopath traits that lead to good and you can have psychopath traits that lead you down and lead others down with you down some dark
totally.
path.
Hmm.
And the people that might quote unquote know better, they might not know that they know better, but they're like just keeping to themselves, working on themselves, whatever it might be. Since they're not engaged, the only ones that are engaged are those guys that are like the bad psychopath. Like I'm gonna drag a bunch of people down with me in this mission, this whatever it could be.
Yeah,
It could be some scam. It can be some policies that are completely
yeah,
counterproductive. And then the
yeah.
guys that like what you're saying before, people that don't like you're saying like not everyone should have to be a high performer. Let's say it's okay to not be. Those are the
Hmm.
guys that are sort of like sitting there consuming it because they're just like chilling at their house. They watch the movies that they make. They watch the TV shows they make or the news reels that they're on. And this is what's sort
Mm.
of leading the future.
I get what you mean. Like and you have a point.
Yeah.
But don't you think that
So
there's
don't we all have
still,
the responsibility to sort of engage?
well, yeah, but I think that engagement can take place differently. Like, let's just say when I'm trying to be cool and cute and be like, politics bore me. I mean that in the sense of like, do I follow the American debates right now? No, I don't, because they bore me. But you can be political in different ways. You can even be political in your day to day life, which is like what products you choose to consume, how you choose to interact with other people, like how you decide to raise certain topics. Like, let's say I'm sitting in a private dinner and I hear somebody passing a racist remark. I mean, I would definitely be a person around that table that would be like, hey, do you know the context of what you just said, and call that person out? That's also being political. So I just think that you can do it. I just don't see myself as a person leaving a legacy in a grand scheme of way of like maybe starting an association or a movement. But I think in our day-to-day lives, we can all do good by voting, by deciding what products we choose to purchase and not, how we deal with other people, how we address political topics in our like intimate circle.
Yeah.
So in that sense, everybody can do something. I just think that everybody leaves their legacy in different ways, and not everybody has to do that in the most extravagant Americanized way where it's like I started
Yeah.
this nonprofit organization.
Oh well, nonprofit's the biggest joke nowadays.
Well, I wouldn't know.
Anyone,
I
anyone,
wouldn't.
anyone that tells me nonprofit, I always just wink at them like, I get you.
Okay.
Oh, one of those. Okay, I get you.
Yeah. What I do think is important as a person is to like read about things and learn about things. That I do think. I mean, I would say, if anything, an obligation as a human being is to like, hey, this Black Lives Matter thing, I see it a lot on like TV. Like, what's that about? Like, read it. I mean, just educate yourself. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Or like, oh, why are these trans people being so loud about like and like when I say read, I don't mean like a BuzzFeed article on Facebook. I mean like
yeah,
actually read literature and be woke, not in the millennial sense of the way where you just publicize a hashtag. But I
yeah,
mean, for example, in the Black Lives thing, I mean, I read this literature for years because it interests me, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it became a hashtag. So I just think if there's anything we need to do as humans living in this world, with psychopaths, the way you say, running us, I think it's even more important than ever to elevate ourselves and to be well read and apply like source criticism and inform ourselves beyond the quick clips on Instagram, beyond the hashtag that's trending at the moment.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the term go woke, go broke?
No, I didn't. But I think you can be woke and not broke, because I'm pretty woke and I'm not broke.
But it's also like companies, though. It's like a lot of companies were just trying to join the trend of going woke, and then they actually backfired on them one way or another, because they realized, like, wait a minute, these guys are saying about this woke life are actually completely not our clientele. They actually pushed away our clientele, because there's also people that are, you know, when you said go woke, I'm a bit worried in a sense, but I realize your meaning is a little bit different than the mainstream meaning of what it is. You're just saying, like, to educate yourself and inform yourself.
I'm not meaning the hipster-esque woke. I mean the woke of like actually like applying the work of like learning things that we're living in this globalized world where shit happens in China and it affects all of us, and maybe not just seek information through Instagram and Twitter and like short little things,
but and forwarded WhatsApp voice notes.
Exactly. Just try to like read about things. I don't know.
Or if you do hear a voice note and they say, Dr. such and such said this, how about you actually type in Dr. such and such from such and such university and figure out if that guy is actually a real guy.
Exactly. Or if he's one of those Nigerian doctors that like wants to have like $1 million when he shows up in your email, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I give them always $1 million.
You do?
Yeah.
I kind of feel bad. I feel bad. They always have this big family feud going on and somebody died and they really need the 1 million.
And sometimes for them to release the 25,865,032,322.25, they need $5,000 to release the funds.
Totally.
You know, I always feel bad. I'm like, guys, I completely understand you. Where do I send the money?
Exactly. Like, you want to help out.
Yeah, where do I mail it to? Where do I mail the check?
Help a Nigerian brother out, for God's sakes.
For real. I can't wait to go to Nigeria one day and just go to the coffee shops and be like, hey, are you the dude that emailed me? Did you get the money? Did you get the money, Rahman? Did you get it? I sent it like 3 years ago, and I just came to check in on you because the money hasn't hit my bank account. And I understand we're far away, so sometimes it takes time for it to transfer over.
Totally. And I don't know.
I'm more worried because you said your whole family passed away, and this is it.
Yeah.
So I'm just here to check on you.
Totally. Good deed.
It's hilarious though how those, like, you know, how that's a thing. Like, you say Nigerian scam, and then people are like, they know it instantly. That's like their brand. Like, is Nigeria known for anything else other than scams?
Actually, one of my favorite writers is from Nigeria. She writes great literature. I can't pronounce her name. Her name is Chimamanda. I can't pronounce her last name, but she's a great writer.
Sounds good enough for me.
I'm sure there's so many good things coming out of Nigeria. That's not no hate on Nigeria. We're just joking about scammers.
She's just joking. I'm serious. Oh man, Sepi. So you've lived in different places in the world, and I just want to know if you see a difference between first world countries and third world countries. Like, do you see pros and cons behind? Is that even a thing? Do you think? Like, do you think a third world what? Do you think that's even a thing? First off, yeah.
Yeah, it is a thing. It's a fact.
Okay. Like, what does that mean to you, though? What would a third world country have or not have that a first world country has? And is there things that a third world country has that first world countries don't have?
I mean, off the bat, just standard of living and the way workers live in Sweden as opposed to DR, for example, where you could definitely be like a supermarket cashier here and definitely live a dignified life and have a cute little house and maybe even go on a holiday abroad once a year. You're definitely going to live less lavish than a doctor or an engineer would here too, but I think the minimum is way higher here, whereas in DR, for example, there is an extreme poverty in a different way. So I would say like the poverty issue, of course.
But do you think the quality of life is like affected in a way? Because don't you see also a lot of people happy, smiling, enjoying themselves. Like they don't really grasp, like, because you're
Yeah,
saying the
but I
standard of
think
living, you know, you're like,
like
oh, they have a cute little house and stuff. But then sometimes, like, if you don't know about that concept, then it doesn't affect you because it never crossed your mind in a way.
yes, and partly that could be true, but I definitely have a thing against the stereotype of the happy poor person because I think that's a way to maintain class relationships the way they are. I think like it's a cliche
Gotcha.
image that hey, they're really poor and they don't have feet, they don't have any teeth, but look at them smiling and dancing. I think that's kind of like ridiculing people, and I think that's kind of like underestimating people. I'm sure Dominicans are, for example, a very happy, kind people. That's, you know, and yes,
Yeah.
do they laugh more often? Do they engage in conversation more lightly? Do they dance more? Yes, although I don't like to talk about people in stereotypical ways, but at the same time I'm never going to think that that person doesn't struggle or suffer from being poor, because it's just not fun being poor. So I'm not going to like be like, hey, but you know, in Africa they're so happy because they're just dancing and they have a lot of rhythm, so they don't
Yeah.
care about money. Because I just think that's a way for like the western part of the world or us more privileged people to keep kind of this whole caste system that we have going in place of being like, hey, it's
Yeah.
fine. Like I can just live my life. They're happy. So yeah, I think Swedes have a lot to learn from Dominicans on how to be more happy and being more grateful with things they have. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm faced very often in the DR with people being very poor and being very unhappy about it too. I mean, I speak to my cleaning ladies oftentimes and they're all really sad over not being able to like retire, you know, and having to work until, you know, the end of their life. So I mean, I think that they can dance and be happy and yet be very unhappy and very worried about their finances.
And what do you think, like, because you said, like, what makes a person then rich, or because you said poor, right? So what is the opposite? Like, what would be okay then?
I think, I mean, what do you mean it's okay?
Because you're like, ah,
Uh,
some people are poor, and you're not saying, and you're saying that's not okay. So I'm like, what would be the reverse? Because I'm guessing you're not saying that they have to be billionaires, that they have to
no,
be
I think that you
multimillionaires.
should,
But I'm just saying.
no,
So I'm saying, what is that thing? What is that thing?
no, that thing is not having to worry about your feeding your children, or definitely having like dental care done when you need it, and not when you need an important surgery, not being like sent to a really poor public hospital where they kind of like don't give you the care that you need. I think it's the basics
Yeah.
like food, house, shelter, and care. I think those are the basics that every human should have. Beyond that, if we're driving a Rolls Royce because you deserved it, and some guy is driving his Pasola, fine. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I do think standards of like, I think housing, food, like care, when it comes to like medical care, those are all basic human rights that we should have guaranteed. And I don't see those things being guaranteed in third world countries.
Yeah. I know that they do work on them because I have friends that work in, like, government projects for building homes and
Hmm.
things like that. But it is also difficult because, um, you know, sometimes, like, you saw this happen in, you see this happen actually right now. I know people that buy merchandise from Haiti because the guys
Mm,
in Haiti that receive all these donations from companies, from individuals, whether it's clothing or whatever, they just sell it off.
right.
You know, they're like, hey guys, we need shirts, we need pants, we need this. They get the
Mm,
shirts and the pants and they just sell it across the border.
mm,
And they're almost like, sort of like, you know, it's hard to, because sometimes even this, like, you see it, you can give someone $1,000. It's like that story with the three, I forgot if it's like the three brothers, and one of them becomes a lawyer, the other one becomes like a doctor, and then the other one's like an entrepreneur, right? And
mm,
the father says, like, hey guys, when I'm dead, uh like, he gave them all $1,000 each, right? And he's like, hey guys, when I'm dead, like, I want you guys to repay me and put that money back in the grave. So the father died like many years later, and then the doctor gives him $1,000, puts $1,000, right? The lawyer, he goes there, he puts $1,000, and then the entrepreneur comes, writes a check for $3,000, and then takes the 2,000, and then just like leaves, you know.
right. Yeah.
So he came up with this sort of like creative solution, but it's like some people you can give them $1,000 and they could go blow it on alcohol and drugs, and then there's someone who might fix their teeth up instead, you know,
Right. But
and there might be another guy that starts some sort of small home business, whatever it might be.
mm,
So that's the tricky part, you know. Sometimes people give homes, like in this country, they give homes to people that are furnished, and the people just sell everything that's in the house.
yeah, but isn't that also the cycle of poverty? That's like generational poverty that's gone through like several generations, where it's kind of like a habit. Like there's been
So
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 much.
why break someone out of that then? Like in the sense of like you're like, no, guys, how you're living is not acceptable. So I'm gonna bring you up to the standard that I think that living is
But I
acceptable.
think it
You
takes
know?
generations. I think it takes generations to break the habits of poverty. I think it's going to take like maybe 2 or 3 generations until that person realizes that, listen, I don't have to sell off these furniture. I'm actually pretty good with my basic needs. Do you know what I mean? But if you
Yeah.
a person that never had anything, can you really blame that person for having his first instinct is like, let's sell this off to get cash money to save it for a rainy day? I mean, isn't that just all
But what if it's
psychologically
not
like
to
the
save it
effect
for a
of?
rainy day? They're like, I just want to go buy a new iPhone.
Well, you know what, Charles? There's never going to be a system that's optimal. We don't really live in utopia, right? So it's
Yeah.
always choosing, in my opinion, it's always choosing like the lesser of two evils in any system, whatever way you choose to like drive a society forward. There's always going to be loopholes. There's always going to be people using the system, abusing the system. But I think
So what
if
do you
you
do to
think,
those people? You let them keep running free reign, or
I guess
you punish,
there must be
or
like sanctions in place where you realize, oh, you messed up. Well, we're gonna put you on the shit list. You're never gonna get a government grant again. I mean, there are already those things in place. Like in Sweden, you have a lot of subsidies systems where you get like subsidies from the government for like housing or for having X amount of kids. But obviously, these public authorities investigate, and sometimes they realize, hey, you lied about like having 3 kids. You actually just have 1 kid. You have to pay this money back, and we're going to put you to court. So like there are definitely like structures around it where you can put sanctions, but I don't
yeah.
think those people should be the reason for keeping the grand majority of people poor just because some loser is going to like abuse the system, because there's always going to be somebody abusing the system.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
those are those interesting questions of like how to handle those situations. And then also those sort of arbitrary concepts of what is good, what is bad living. And
Mm.
because like now, for example, in this country, everyone's like, if you don't have air conditioning, how do you live? It's so hot, you
I
know?
never put on aircon because it's so expensive. I don't think aircon is a part of living well, but I do think we're
Okay.
talking basics. We're talking about like having teeth in your mouth, having a sick child and being able to take that to hospital. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the luxuries of life. I think everybody deserves to get hospital care. I think everybody deserves to get fed and have a dignified house. I think everybody deserves to have teeth. You see 16-year-olds in the Dominican Republic that don't have teeth that function in their mouth.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's I mean, not the lack of teeth, the fact that there's a society in place that like allows young people to walk around without teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting you, and I'm just like thinking about it all. That's why I'm just saying, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's things that are not challenges that are tricky, because then you also have people that might start a nonprofit because they're like, yo, people really need teeth, and then they're just like siphoning money out of this thing, for example. You know, and
But
that's
yet
also the
again, there's
messed up thing.
always gonna be, yeah, but then you have like big company leaders that embezzle billions of money. You know, you have the thing like with the Panama Papers a years back, where pretty much like, I don't know if you remember that story with the Panama Papers, but this thing,
Yeah.
they just discovered this whole plot where like all of the big guys in the world, like all the richest people had like embezzled money, hidden off money in Panama bank accounts. I mean,
Sure.
honestly, I also think in the grand scheme of things, the toothless guy that sells his chair to make an extra buck to go buy some presidentes, he's
Yeah.
not really in the grand scheme of things the big issue here. The big issue is what's going on behind the scenes, the real players that you don't even think about that are doing a lot of dirty things in like bank accounts in Panama or Switzerland or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's focus on those people instead of like depriving instead of like critiquing poor people for acting in accordance with their poverty?
It's a tricky thing, you know, because in the end, it almost all comes from the same place, like deep
Mm.
down, you know, because they're all, like you said, human in a way.
Agreed.
So in
Agreed.
the end, it all comes from the same place. It's just on a different scale.
Yeah, but
And
the
sometimes
impact.
that guy that might have embezzled millions or billions of dollars, he might be the guy that brought electricity to a whole country.
Mm.
So he's like, hey guys, the only reason why you have power here is because of me. And it happened to be that I just overcharged everyone for the last 25 years and didn't pay any taxes on it. But you had electricity.
Right.
So which one do you want? You know? And all this extra money didn't affect anyone anyways. You guys are just mad about it now because you figured out that I'm just super loaded. And
Well, if it was evaded tax, it did affect a lot of people because it affected like public roads and hospitals and shit. So definitely affected people. And the best thing would have been a guy that.
yeah, but he didn't want to give the public roads because he knew the guy that makes the public roads is always overcharging on the contract. So he's like, why am I going to pay to give this guy my money now? So screw that guy. And
You're putting me into like this rabbit hole. We can like go on and on and on and on about that. I definitely come from a school of thought where I do think that the big
that most
majority of
people are good.
that we are inherently good. I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I think we are inherently like good. Most people are good. If my moto ever broke down in the DR, wherever I was, however poor that person was, I always got help.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I just think the majority of us are inherently good, irrespective of what the media feeds us. I feel like in my day-to-day life, having traveled and lived different places, people are good. So you can't create a society based on the losers that aren't. You have to create like an optimal society with that kind of.
I guess you got to create the checks and balances for everyone
totally.
and apply it equally across the
Exactly.
board. And I think that's also what's maybe not happening, you know, because everyone has this mirage or they create this illusion that like, hey guys, we're going to make justice everywhere. And don't you worry, we're going to do this for everyone. And then next thing you know, that guy who made that speech was also doing the same thing that everyone else was doing, you know, like stealing money and doing this.
That's why you have a transparent society with rules in place, you know, like in Sweden, for example, you have transparency laws, which is pretty much every public document that isn't like confidential is open for you or any. I mean, I could literally walk into any government office today and be like, I want tax papers belonging to that and that person. Yeah. It's just about transparency. I mean, a few years ago we had do you say minister in the government? One of the like we had a minister in the government like years ago when I was a kid, and it was this big scandal because it turned out that she had bought a Toblerone, which is this chocolate.
I heard about this. Yeah.
I told you about this with her government issued card that was for purity. And you know, it was called Toblerone Gate in Sweden, and she was actually had to like leave her position because, you know, she had mixed up her role. Like they're like, why are you using a government issued card for personal purchases? So I mean, there are definitely ways to like to fix that.
Was she a good person in her role though?
Yeah, she was a good person in her role, but I just think that the public's
son of a bee.
Her, I think she kind of lost face in front of the public that they were like, just if you're doing this, what else are you like?
And did someone ask her that? They're like, if you're buying these Toblerones, what else are you doing? And she's like,
well, I guess it's just
I
like
bought a Trident gum once, guys.
I think it's just crossing that line, right? Like if you have a bank card that your employer gave you, you just kind of like the fact that I
wish I had an employer that gave me a bank card. Jesus, does that happen? Can that happen? Can I get that?
I had one with my previous one, and I didn't buy Toblerone on it.
I would maybe. What if she bought Toblerone for the president?
I know that you're not a pothead, but that's just something a pothead would say.
Yeah, but what if that was the case? And she's like, she held this whole secret together. The dude who's the president's like, yo, really, thank you for taking the fall. Because this would have been even a bigger scandal if you would have bought it to give it to me as a gift.
Yeah.
Whew, after work hours as well. I was gonna eat that chocolate not during work hours because I have my diet, and I was gonna eat it probably around 9 o'clock when I'm off duty.
Yeah.
So yeah, I heard about that. I remember the Toblerone gate. No, that's the thing, it's finding out that balance, the yin yang of right and wrong and how to
Mhm.
navigate it. And the unfortunate side that I do see myself is that I find that it's like watching politics is almost like watching a comedy show. Like I see it as like, is there a TV show of like Who's Lying?
No,
Like
but
there's like maybe three people lined up, and then like one dude's saying a story, the other dude's saying a story, and the other dude's saying a story, and you're like trying to figure out who's lying. And you're like, man, all
mm,
these stories just sound so good. And I really think his name is James. And then
right.
you're like, he's a liar. And I
Mm.
almost find it's like that with politics now. It's like, you're like, wait, you're going to promise to build Ferris wheels in everyone's backyard? Is this going to happen?
Right.
And then he gets elected, and you're like, wait a minute, he's not going to build the Ferris wheels? What the hell has just happened, guys?
Right. Or a wall,
Or a wall.
like a really like cute wall with lots of like graffiti on it.
That would be pretty cool.
Mm.
Hey, I bet you can't jump it. And then on the other side, it's like, I did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
Inspirational right there. No,
Yeah.
so Sepi, I think we went through it all, but you know what I would like to, I don't know if there's other things that there's so many critical, very important topics that we could talk about, and we could all both become maybe diplomats
But
in the
nobody's
future.
gonna be like, everybody's gonna like have turned it off like 10 hours ago. They're
You'd
gonna
be
be like,
you'd be surprised. And even though the videos are not getting, let's say I wasn't like, people were asking like, oh, what are you doing it for? And I'm like, I'm doing it just because I find, just like in reading something, just like in watching something, this might not be the best habit of mine. I try to find meaning and create meaning in certain things. Like someone might say
mm,
something
mm,
off the cuff,
mm,
and they're like, oh, I didn't mean that. And I'm like, they might have meant that, or
mm.
what was behind them saying those things. And sometimes it's nothing, but sometimes it is something. And having these sort of like conversations about all types of things can lead to anything.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's just good to sort of have them. There are people that I consider NPCs in this life that are literally, for lack of better words, like taking air. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. I think that they can change, that they can maybe do better or whatever it is. And this can come from any country in the world, any type of person. But I find that there's some people that are just not actively living or engaging in life. They're sort of just
Right.
drifting.
Right.
And let's say you're like, I don't want to do, you're like this legacy rah stuff. I'm not interested in that. I'm just working on myself. I'm trying to work on my own errors, not commit errors that I committed before, learn, develop. I'm like, that's already a great thing.
Mm,
Like that's already like a huge step forward, because a
mm.
lot of people, they could give two shits. They're like,
Right.
wow, what do you mean? Like, I'm Netflixing, I'm chilling,
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
I'm on that social.
Yeah.
I got this face mask that says I'm woke. And
Yeah. Totally. It's
uh
a waste of life, it's a waste of brain. And I mean, we have
well,
this
that's the thing,
intellect.
is like sort of what you were saying though, is saying that it's not a waste, right? You're like, everything matters. And I'm
Mm,
like, then again, that's sort of not, in my opinion, that's not the reality. I'm like, there are some people that are literally just taking space, and taking space in a way that it's like, if they at least kept in their own line, that'd be great. But it's like they're not even keeping in their own line. They're just getting drifted off by some other guy's agenda. And then that guy's agenda is a very destructive agenda. And they're just supporting it because they're like, this sounds great, you know? And
right.
they're not thinking. So they're actually causing more trouble, more hoops, more difficulties, more intricacies that don't even need to be there. Because we could all live
Right.
a simple, nice life and probably have all these things you said: unlimited food, unlimited care, better education, because I think also if we were better educated, we wouldn't also have all the health issues we have, because
Mm,
people are just overindulging in all types of stuff,
mm,
right? And we built up these cultures and these norms that are very destructive.
right.
And then we built these ways to bring ourselves back, to just destroy ourselves again, to just bring ourselves back, to destroy ourselves again. And
Mm,
this can be personally, this can be in a society, this could be in all types of ways, shapes and forms. But it's so yeah, like just having conversations are interesting, and people do watch it all. That's actually what I was gonna get to. People actually watch it all the way till the end. So I do get,
yeah.
yeah, we do get some messages once in a while of like, hey, that was good, that was great, or hey, buddy, go fuck yourself. And I'm like, awesome.
Well, I wanna to everybody that's still watching, kudos to you
Yeah.
for still
Do you wanna like leave them with some knowledge, like
oh,
some, because you left them with your philosophy, which is kindness. You're like, just be kind. And
yeah,
we don't know exactly what kindness means, because is it 10%? Is it 25%? We don't know. But whatever you think being kind is, just be that, I guess.
exactly. Yeah, be kind. That's what my dad said, and he's kind of I think, yeah, my dad always said, "Be kind, it multiplies." I just think that's great. Be kind.
Kindness multiplies. No, and
Yeah.
it's true. And that's actually, I'll send you a video that I sent to, it's in German though. So you have to read the subtitles, but
Oh,
it is actually very good. And that's sort of what the guy was saying. He was saying like, you know, this whole grand, these grand ideas of how to solve complex problems, like they're not for everyone. So he's like, what is a practical way for everyone to move forward? He's like, he gave an example of like, if a guy left, he's like, a simple way to sort of like kindness multiplies. He's like, imagine it's a rainy day. Okay. You get out of your car, you're walking, and then you see another guy get out of his car and start walking in an opposite direction. And he left his headlights on, you know? He's like, you have the decision there to keep walking or walk through the rain and be like, hey man, you left your headlights on.
of course.
And then you go tell him he left his headlights on. He's like, shit, this guy just ran through the rain to tell me I left my headlights on. And then he
Yeah,
thinks about that. And in the future, he might do something that's nice. And then
totally.
that
I
person does something that's nice. And then you, as
totally.
yourself, doing those nice things are just
Yeah,
like multiplying. So it is true. And kindness can come in all shapes and forms, just like saying, hey, that dress looks very good on you, or that pink, that
totally.
baby pink turtleneck is the best baby pink turtleneck I've ever seen in my life. And
Thanks.
yeah, that could be it. So
Yeah,
kindness
and
multiplies.
your your headphones look really cool, and like they look like the sound quality is like amazing. Just want to commend you on the choice of like headphones.
I can hear each
Mm.
letter out of all your words.
Wow.
That was like 5 A's,
This is
4 O's.
Sepi being like, listen, this is the end of class where I like see myself like my energy levels are going low and I'm getting silly. So I think this would be a good time to like wrap it up before
No,
like I
it's been wrapped up actually. It's already wrapped up.
already
Yeah, people
okay.
left. No one's here anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. So in any case, Seppi, I don't think you're trying to sell anything, so there's no plugins for you. You're just trying to.
No,
Oh,
no. I mean, I'm a really good copywriter, so if anybody needs somebody to write, you can like use me for that.
are you a ghostwriter too? Like if I told you a concept of a book, you just write
Yes.
it, and then I just pay you a
Yes.
small fee, and I make all the money, and then we live this capitalistic.
You don't pay me a small fee. That's where you went wrong, but you pay me a fee
It'll
and
be an
then I go
acceptable fee.
acceptable. Totally. Yeah. I'm a writer. I can write anything.
Oh, that's good. It's good to know. Learning
But
something new
yeah,
every
no,
day.
I'm not doing marketing. I'm just messing around.
Okay.
Yeah. Go into my web
www.sepiisagreatlawyer.com.
page and like
Yeah. Well, and
follow
it,
me on Instagram. I have like a lot of followers.
what is your Instagram?
I'm joking, dude.
Oh,
I
okay.
wouldn't be so narcissistic to like accumulate followers to my Instagram account.
It's also interesting that they call it followers, but a lot of people don't follow anything those guys say. like the
Exactly.
influencers, you know, they're like, I'm an influencer. And then you're like, hey, we had this, we had this one person. We're like, hey, can you promote this one product? And they shared the stats with us, right? Of like
Mhm.
what actually came from it.
Yeah, the engagement level and stuff.
They have 50,000 quote unquote followers.
Right.
They put up this image. They got thousands of likes. They got thousands of impressions, 0 clicks,
You see?
0 sales.
Yeah, it's all about the engagement. It's not
I'm
really about the
like,
amount of followers. And
I'm like,
you know,
whatever
I'm
followers
not
you got, tell them not to follow me because they ain't my type of followers. I need people that are gonna go destroy things when I say so
all
or buy
right. I get it.
things.
You want minions, you don't want followers.
That's what they should call. That's what they should. When you have an actual influencer account, you have minions, like a small like tab that says minions.
Yeah, you want like a minion. But
I'm gonna
I
send
mean,
that
we're
to
gonna
Mark
wrap up.
Zuckerberg.
But for me, it's actually the opposite. I actually read an article in The Cut, which is a really good online magazine, whatever, a few months back, which was called The Anti-Influencer, which was about this counter movement
Drags
to the
people away.
influencer, which is pretty much like if I see an influencer marketing a product, I know what not to buy. And to be honest, that kind of applies to me. Like the market is getting so saturated. We're getting
Yeah.
all of these messages of buy this vitamin detox thing or buy this healthy tummy tea or buy this fucking like whatever.
Yeah,
And
that tummy tea is good.
well, whatever, but there's this counter trend where it's like the anti-influencer, which is pretty much that anything that an influencer markets, I just know what not to buy.
Well, that's the same thing that I was saying with the brands that started selling face masks during this whole thing, right?
I'm
Branded
probably
face
not going to be
masks.
a loyal customer anymore.
Yeah. So that's actually good. The anti-influencer.
Yeah.
Jesus. Now I know what to do. Send your competitor brands to
Wait,
anti-influencer.
2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Wait, you gotta pee? It's actually a good idea as to whoever's listening and watching.
I think the door, there was a ring on the door.
This is a competitive strategy right here. You find your competitors' brands and you find the biggest anti-influencers on the market and you send them those products. You're like, hey, can you please promote this brand for us? And they don't even care because they just accept money and promote anything. And then people are like, screw that brand.
See, that's your
Oh
next
my
business
God.
idea.
That's going to be, I'm going to start a media company and I don't know if you want to be partners in it, but this is going to be called the anti-influencer company where we're just going to throw brands down the drain real quick.
But what I do want you to do, if you want to, please Google it, The Cut and like the anti-influencer. It's not that long.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's longer than 1 minute, then it's not my thing. Like I just like to read headlines. But
I get it. Try to challenge yourself.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
But all right, Sepi, it was a pleasure. And I hope your brain doesn't hurt too much, but I hope you also got some little bit of value out of this.
I did. I always get a value out of talking to you. And thank you for finding me interesting enough to have a talk with me. Yeah. And yeah, it was my pleasure. And I think my brain grew if it can.
And let's see if you're interesting enough to have a second talk one day.
Ooh.
That's the big one, right? It's like, it's one thing to get taken out on a date once. It's another thing to be taken out on a date twice.
Normally that doesn't happen to me. I'm pretty much dumped after the first one, but let's see. Maybe this is like the golden.
This is the turnaround. This is the comeback.
You know, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, and you're going like this. See, that's why you don't get invited a second time. They're like, this person just has no idea what's going on.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Anyway, peace out. Yeah.
Peace out. Yeah. Thank you very much again. And I like that. Actually looked like a bit Asian-y. That's a stereotype. Oh, she brought the surfer out. You're just putting it all together, all in one. Yeah, all right, exactly. Sepi. Okay. Have a good one. And this call will be ended right
now.
Now.
Bye.
Bye.